Vice President J.D. Vance is joining Erica Kirk at this Turning Point USA event at the University of Mississippi, keeping Charlie Kirk's mission going. And J.D. Vance was also asked about a potential 2028 White House run on the Pod Force One podcast with Miranda Devine, insisting that there's no tension between himself and Marco Rubio. Listen to this.
First of all, no, there's not going to be any tension. Marco is my best friend in the administration. He and I work a lot together.
Right.
And we really do, I think, a lot of the good work that we've been able to do as an administration is because we're all able to work together. And again, this is why I say worrying too much about the politics actually, I think, makes you worse at the job that you have. I never want to wake up. And so far, I have never woken up and thought to myself, how do I make myself president of the United States? What I wake up and think to myself is, how do I do a good job as vice president? And I think Marco Rubio asks himself, how do I do a good job as Secretary of State? And that should be the question that each of us keeps on asking ourselves.
James, it's interesting. Vance is certainly dominating the polls when it comes to the 2028 presidential race.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, I agree with the fact that he probably, there are no tensions with Rubio, and I do think they do have a strong relationship. I think he's maybe not being completely honest about the fact that he's thinking about the presidency in 2028 and has no ambition for that whatsoever. But look, that tag team, Rubio and Vance, is going to be one of the most destructive in Republican politics. They are a real force to be reckoned with. Now, there will be a bit of a contest in 2028 as to who gets to lead and who has to play the bit part role. But I suspect if one of those men can put their ego aside, then that could be another 8 years in the White House for the Republicans. The last thing I'll say is, it may not even be in their hands. I suspect Trump will want to anoint a successor. He still has a huge amount of sway over the party. He wouldn't even want to be thinking about this just yet. But I suspect whoever he chooses to anoint, if he does so choose to anoint, then that person will go on to become the leader of the Republican Party.
James, J.D. Vance was also asked about what a vice president actually does, and he said that he was jealous of Kamala Harris because she appeared to do not much at all. And of course, the former vice president Kamala Harris has sat down for an interview on Australia's ABC's news channel, and she was giving word salad after word salad. Listen to one of them.
You say in the book that it was reckless for you not to intervene on that decision to run again, given the stakes. How could you leave the decision to Joe Biden and Joe Biden?
As I write, and this book really is about it's candid. I offer a lot of candor around what I did and what I believe I could have done and should have done differently, and what was at play overall.
James, you just think about how many times Kamala Harris has been asked this question about Joe Biden, and she still doesn't have a clear answer.
Oh, Gabby, I just want you to make sure that you knew she's being candid. I hope that point was made.
I might have missed that.
Look, Woodrow Wilson, he was a president about 100 or so years ago, and he said that the vice presidential role was basically unimportant until you cease to be the vice president. And what he meant by that was, that's when the president dies or has to leave office, and the vice president no longer becomes vice president, and he is the president. Kamala Harris, for 4 years, was a heartbeat away from the full presidency. Now, when you speak like that, and you know what the question's going to be, and you've been asked this question 100 times every single month, not even after the book tour, during the book tour, and before the book tour, how she can't provide a better answer than that, it absolutely beggars belief. And I know she's been flirting with another presidential run. I cannot think of anything worse for the Democratic Party than for her to run again. In fact, I would suggest, as my piece of advice to the Democratic Party, no Californians, no Gavin Newsom, no Kamala Harris, and no Nancy Pelosi. And I think the party will be in a much better shape.
Well, we have heard from Nancy Pelosi. Apparently the No Kings rallies that were held in the United States, they were actually not political. Listen to this.
Because I see the Democrats every day. You saw a march that was not political, and the value of it was that it wasn't political. No King's Day. It was spontaneous, organic, but everybody was there. And that's what's important, is what are the people thinking? What are they hopeful about? What are they willing to get out the vote for?
James, I must have got that wrong. Wasn't political at all.
I would love to just spend a day in Nancy Pelosi's head just to figure out what she sees, because No Kings, was that meant to be some kind of reference to King Charles or something? I don't understand. If this wasn't a political rally or a Republican rally, then what on earth was it? It was obviously a Democrat rally. And yes, there were a lot of groups behind it. I think Arabella, one of these Democratic networks, sent something like over $70 million to funding this activity. So look, it wasn't organic. I saw the posters all over the streets in New York in the first 3 weeks in the build up to it. So the fact that this was organic or spontaneous, I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. I don't know where she's getting that from.